Ava stepped away from the latrines again, straining her eyes to look into the woods, but she couldn't see anything in the dark. She ought to go find the nearest patrol and alert them to what she'd heard. But then she stopped. What if she was overreacting? After the embarrassment of the day she'd already had, the last thing she needed was to send the camp on high alert over nothing. Anybody could be hiding in the trees beyond the camp. A couple of soldiers who wanted a little more privacy than they got in their tents. Somebody who was simply out for a nighttime stroll. Anyone. Maybe she should investigate first, and then report back to a patrolman if there was a real sign of trouble. Ava crept around the walls of the latrine, sticking to the shadows as she tiptoed towards the woods. Listening intently, she moved beyond the first few trees, but she couldn't hear anything now. A few feet farther, she stopped. The sounds had died down, and it was too dark to see. She should turn back. But then, right when she turned around, someone lunged forward through the underbrush. Before she could so much as let out a gasp, strong arms had grabbed her from behind, and a hand was pressed firmly against her mouth. "Make a sound and you die," a voice whispered in her ear. Ava's blood ran cold as she was pulled backward deeper into the woods. She instinctively struggled against the stranger's hold, but was unable to free herself. Who was this? Was the camp under attack? What was going to happen to her? She was pulled into a clearing after a few minutes, where she saw a crowd of around 20 people, illuminated by an oil lamp covered with a sackcloth to dim the light. They were all in Destian armor, she noticed, their helmets and breastplates gleaming silver in the thin light, rather than the bronze she'd heard the Fantasians wore. But they all had their weapons drawn, and she could make out grim looks on the faces of those nearest to her, which made their Destian clothes look less like a uniform and more like a disguise. "What are you doing?" one of the Fantasian soldiers demanded in a whisper, stepping closer to Ava and the person who still had a hand over her mouth. "I told you not to do anything that would raise suspicions. She heard us approaching and came into the woods by herself," the person holding Ava replied. "She would have reported us if I hadn't captured her." "You imbecile," the first whispered again. "It's fine," another one of the soldiers said, stepping forward. The other soldiers all stepped back from him respectfully, and Ava realized he must be the leader. "We can use her." A shudder traveled down Ava's spine at these words. She didn't know what their objective was, but she knew it wasn't anything good. "Let her speak," the leader told her captor. "But girl, I warn you, you don't want to scream." He placed his hand on the hilt of his weapon menacingly, and the message was clear. If she disobeyed, they would kill her. The man behind Ava removed his hand, and she took in a couple of quick breaths, trying to calm her heartbeat. She couldn't afford to panic. If she lost her head, it would be all over.